Hello there, and thank you for watching this week's Weatherquest farming forecast. Well, it's quite a contrast to this time last week when we were seeing temperatures in the mid to high 20s. Since then, we've seen a blast of Arctic air spread across the UK, and it is feeling pretty wintry at the minute. But will it continue? We'll have a look at the forecast in the next few minutes. First of all, though, this is just a loop of the past few days, just to emphasise how wintry it has been. We've had this north to northwesterly flow, seen fairly widespread wintry showers across Scotland, parts of the northern parts of Ireland, into parts of northern England as well, and at times spreading further south across the Midlands. There's been a few down in East Anglia, Wales, southwest England as well. It's been relatively dry and fairly sunny across southern parts of England and some central areas as well, and you can see overnight those showers became largely confined to northeastern parts of East Anglia, down the Irish Sea, and then still plenty of snow showers across Scotland as well. So it's been pretty wintry feeling over the next few days, and it looks like it is going to stay relatively cold over the next few days as well. So this is the jet stream, how it's been over the past couple of days. We've had a trough of low pressure out to the east of us, this area of high pressure here out to the west, and we've had a fairly strong northerly jet pushing cold air in from the Arctic, and that's been what's making it feel so cold over the last few days. So this here is the air mass, so just indicative of the type of air that's over us, and you can see that blast of northerly air that's been coming down over today and the next couple of days as well. It is going to feel quite cold. There is this period midweek when, as we see a bit more of a west or southwesterly, it might turn milder for a time, especially in the south, before towards the end of the week and into the weekend there's another blast of cold air which comes straight down from the Arctic, so feeling quite cold again. There's going to be the ongoing risk of frost, so if you're dealing with things that are quite frost sensitive at the minute, it's definitely worth staying on top of the forecast and checking out the frost risk, because most nights have the risk of frost in places. So this is Tuesday evening. We've got this high area of high pressure out to the west, this area of low pressure over Scandinavia, and we've got this feed of wintry showers spreading down across the British Isles during Tuesday evening. That's going to largely continue Tuesday night and into Wednesday, mainly becoming confined to northern Scotland, parts of the Irish Sea and down the east coast by Wednesday morning. And it is going to be quite chilly, especially further inland where there's going to be plenty of clear skies. There's going to be quite a sharp frost for many places. So this is just one model's idea of the kind of minimum temperatures overnight tonight and into Wednesday morning. You can see fairly widespread -2s, -3s, as low as -6, -7, maybe even -8, -9 over the high ground of the Highlands and parts of the Pennines as well. So pretty cold. The mildest temperatures are going to be in places such as northern East Anglia, around the coastal parts of Wales and southwest England, where there's just that little bit more influence of the slightly milder seawaters, but still even then getting down to close to freezing. But yeah, further inland is where those really cold temperatures are going to be. So well worth keeping an eye on the frost risk for your location over the next few days. Tomorrow's probably the coldest of the next, sorry, tonight's probably the coldest of the next few, but even going forward there are going to be some pretty chilly nights still. So this is Wednesday morning. Got this northwesterly with these showers coming down. They're going to largely clear away during Wednesday. We see this area of low pressure push in from the north, and then that begins to push this front southwards across Scotland and Ireland during the day on Thursday and through Thursday afternoon. So southern areas staying largely dry apart from that odd shower risk during Wednesday morning. This is where it's going to turn slightly milder. Ahead of this front we've got a bit of a west-southwesterly, so actually Thursday could see highs of 12, maybe even 13 degrees in parts of East Anglia and southern England. So slightly milder day for Thursday, but on the other side of this front to the north, that's where we see that next kind of blast of Arctic air coming down, and it's going to turn pretty chilly. You can see wintry showers coming into northern parts of Scotland and getting into parts of Ireland as well. So a bit of a mix on Thursday, all just depending on which side of this band of rain you're on, and whether you're in the slightly milder air to the south of it or that cold, more northerly flow to the north. So during Thursday night and into Friday, that's going to continue to move southwards. You can see during the day on Friday, that's cleared to the south. We've got this fairly strong northerly, bringing scattered showers to northern areas. The thing to watch out for is if you're in the southeast is this area of rain and low pressure that's going to spread up from around here, if you saw that graphic just there, move northeastwards and might just bring some showery rain to parts of Kent, Essex, around London, southeastern England, that sort of area. So one to keep an eye on for Saturday. There is potential for a little bit of rain in the southeast. You can see this model largely kept it further across the nearby continent, but some of the models do bring it a little bit further northwest, which could bring that bit of patchy rain. But elsewhere, a mixture of sunny spells, wintry showers, most frequent in the north, but a few further inland as well, which we could see. But you can see generally towards the weekend, we've still got this area of high pressure out to the west, and that's blocking a lot of areas of low pressure coming in from the west. So relatively settled in the sense that that's blocking a kind of jet stream. It's keeping things less influenced by the Atlantic, but it is causing this cold northerly to affect the UK. So the best way of staying on top of the forecast over the next few days is to keep in touch with our forecasters. You can call them on 09065 777675, £1.55 a minute, plus any network access charges. And they'll be able to keep you up to date on the latest model runs, where is the rain going to be, the shower risk, and especially at this time of year with this ongoing risk of frost this week, for those of you that have got frost sensitive activities going on at the minute, it's well worth staying on top of the forecast for the risk of frosts. Like I say, some nights are going to be a sharper frost than others, particularly tonight and into Wednesday morning, but most nights do have that risk of a frost for somewhere, so well worth staying on top of that if you're concerned about that. So looking a little bit further ahead, this is an Ensemble forecast for the next 10 days or so for Bedford, for air temperature at the upper levels, the air mass temperature and pressure. So you can see there's relatively good agreement over the next few days. Looking at pressure, we've got this dip as that low comes through during the middle part of the week, where we see that front come through. It's a bit of a dip, good agreement between all the models, then it picks back up again towards the weekend and into the early part of next week, as that high out to the west perhaps builds in a little bit more into the early part of next week. You can see after that there's a bigger spread in all the models going further forward in time, but there is a general decrease in pressure. Looks like it might turn a little bit more unsettled as we go further on into next week and the following weekend and following week after that. So that's the idea of the pressure going forward. You can see in the temperatures that cold day for Tuesday into Wednesday. Then there is this lift up into Thursday and Friday as we see that southwesterly develop, bringing a little bit of milder air. Obviously, if you're further north, this drop in temperature will come sooner. It all depends on the timing of that front sliding southwards, but you see in the Midlands, it's Friday into Saturdays when we get back into the cold air, and then staying relatively cold during Sunday and the early part of next week. But there is a hint then, all the models generally beginning to lift the temperatures up a tiny bit over the sort of following 7 days or so. So becoming slightly more unsettled and slightly milder, I think, is the idea going forward beyond the middle part of next week. Just taking a closer look at precipitation amounts over the next few days. Obviously, a lot of these showers that have been coming through have been quite wintry, and there's been some snow and sleet around as well. But just an idea of precipitation amounts. Again, this is for Bedford, just an inland area. Obviously, closer to the coast and further north, there's likely to be a bit more in the way of precip. But you can see generally over the next 7 days or so, this is a probability forecast, so the likelihood is banded into these different bandings of precip amounts. But generally, most of the models are going for less than 2 mil on any given day. There are a few runs that are going for a little bit more. This is much less likely scenario. Generally, amounts are going to be pretty small through this week, but it is going to be an ongoing risk of showers just to keep an eye on over the next few days. So taking a look a little bit further ahead and further afield across Europe as well, this is the mean pressure anomaly for next week. You can see these red colours here, generally signifying above average pressure. That's the idea of what's going on at the surface. It does get a little bit more complicated if you look further up in the atmosphere. So this is the geopotential height at 500 millibars. Basically, this is a kind of idea of what the pressure pattern is higher up in the atmosphere as well. So it's what we kind of use to get an idea of that. And although the surface pressure is largely above average, there's kind of broad signal of higher pressure. You can see in the upper levels there is this trough of low pressure across sort of Western and Central Europe, which is going to bring some quite showery weather in places. Elsewhere it's less dominant, but you can see in the rainfall here, that's reflected with those above average green colours there, around the Mediterranean, into parts of Central Europe, even into parts of the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary. That kind of area could see rainfall amounts above average through next week. But elsewhere with a bit more of the kind of high dominating, it's generally in the brown colours and staying below average for the time of year. So generally below average rainfall away from these central areas where that trough might have that bit more of an influence. In terms of temperatures, it's staying very cold across northwestern Europe. We've still got that northerly flow, which is going to bring cold air, and then that pool of cold air remaining over much of northwest Europe, particularly France, Spain, the Low Countries, into parts of the UK. It's going to be very chilly. The ongoing risk of fairly widespread frosts and low single-figure temperatures as well. Elsewhere, it's a little bit milder. In southern Spain, you can see slightly above average, And then in Eastern Europe as well, temperatures just that bit above average as well. But the main kind of story, I think, is that really cold air across northwestern Europe through next week. Now, looking ahead to the following week, the third week of April, you can see there's a little bit of a shift in the pattern where we did have high pressure generally ridging through. We've now got this signal for below average pressure and generally unsettled conditions with a trough of low pressure out to the west. So that's going to lead to some quite showery weather across much of western and northern Europe. Fronts coming through, some areas of low pressure as well. So turning more unsettled as we go into that week. You can see high pressure still tending to ridge out to the east. There's an anomaly there for above average pressure out there. And the impact that has on the temperatures first is we perhaps do see a little bit of a southerly. If we have low pressure and high pressure out to the east, we tend to get a bit of a southerly. So actually, across much of mainland Europe, temperatures going back to slightly above average or close to average. For the UK and Scandinavia, tending to be slightly below average. The UK is a bit of a tricky one in between these two areas. I think southern parts of the UK may see some incursions of milder air from the south, especially if any areas of low pressure come through. So there could be some milder temperatures, but the further north, the more likely you are of it staying just that bit cooler. In terms of rainfall, you can see a much more unsettled looking picture, a lot of green colours around on the map, above average rainfall for many places, particularly further west, but even further east as well. As areas of low pressure track eastwards, it's going to be fairly unsettled across the bulk of Europe, quite an active jet stream at times as well. Looking a bit further ahead into the very last part of April and just touching the first part of May, there's not a strong signal in terms of the pressure pattern. You can see there's an idea of some lower than average pressure down near the Bay of Biscay out to the southwest of the UK, and then a trough of low pressure out near Scandinavia, perhaps something slightly higher pressure dominated out to the southeast. The impact that has on the rainfall is you can see Western Europe, particularly parts of the UK as well, perhaps seeing above average rainfall in places. In that slightly more kind of quieter band and more settled area in the middle, you can see the brown colours suggesting below average rainfall, so perhaps something drier, but then with that trough of low pressure to the northeast, we could see something slightly more unsettled further parts of Scandinavia and sort of Western Russia, Eastern Europe, that sort of area. So a bit of a mix into week 4, no strong signal, but an idea that Western Europe particularly could be that bit more unsettled. In terms of temperatures, we're still seeing this kind of mild southerly across much of mainland Europe, and that's beginning to show up affecting the UK that bit more as well. Particularly southern parts of the UK could see something relatively mild for the time of year, slightly above average, but the further north you are, and indeed across parts of northwest Scandinavia as well, could still be relatively chilly and below average. So a little bit of a north-south split for the UK, but elsewhere across Europe it looks just that bit milder. Now, before we finish, just one more thing is to highlight the risk of frost, as it's quite an important thing at this time of year with it being so marginal moving into spring. But there is still the risk of frost over the next 10 days or so, as we've mentioned. And this is just a matrix here showing the likelihood of a frost. It's basically something we use here, and it kind of shows the likelihood of temperatures getting below 0 degrees at these locations out for the next, the next 4 weeks or so. And you can see there's a real shift around the 15th, 16th of April. Through until then, there's a good chance of seeing a frost at least somewhere, and some pretty sharp and widespread frost as well, particularly over the next couple of days and then over the weekend. The slightly milder night on Thursday is highlighted here, but then going back to something quite cold again over the weekend. Before then, as we mentioned, it turns slightly milder again. So hopefully once we get to late April into the early parts of May, we should be past the worst of the frosts. Obviously it's getting to May at that point, so hopefully it should be turning milder. But the next 7 to 10 days or so it's a real risk, and it's definitely worth keeping an eye out on the forecast and staying on top of the frost risk for your location. So to summarise for the next few days, it's generally staying pretty chilly for the rest of this week, over the weekend and into the early part of next week. We've got risk of widespread frost, and there is some wintry showers around in places, so don't be surprised to see a few more snow flurries over the next few days. Towards the end of April and into the early part of May, temperatures should return to something a little bit closer to average, but it still looks like it could be that bit more unsettled through those last couple of weeks of the forecast period as well. So thanks for watching this week's video. As ever, if you've got any questions or comments, please leave them below, and you can keep up to date with the day-to-day forecast for East Anglia and the British Isles on our social media. Thanks for watching.